Welcome to another edition of Fast Forward. I'm Tim Selby and glad to have you with me once again. Today we are in Memorial Park, this beautiful park in downtown Steamboat Springs. It's a beautiful place, but it was also the site of an ugly incident several weeks ago in our community, as a swastika was burned into a picnic table just like the one I'm sitting on here now, and I want to talk about that a little bit. But before I do, I want to begin by talking about the formation of the early Christian communities. Now remember, Jesus was Jewish. Most of his early followers were Jewish. The Jewish people had a tradition, they knew their story, they knew their God, they knew their relationship. But then as those early Christian communities developed as an offshoot or a branch off of Judaism, if you will, something really important happened. Many people, especially the Apostle Paul, began to say that this story, this faith, was not just for the Jewish people, but was also for the Gentiles. The Gentiles, who for so many of those people who had been the other their whole lives, who had often been the oppressor, the enemy, those people were now supposed to be included. We're all supposed to be together in this new form of faith tradition. Can you imagine how challenging a word that would have been? How difficult a task that would have been? I'm sure many people were not up to that task and said, that's not possible, we're not doing that. But Paul, known as a messenger to the Gentiles, pressed that work, worked hard to include the Gentiles, and made that happen in a way such that you and I might be a part of the Christian tradition here today. From its very inception, our Christian tradition has been about the work of integration, the work of bringing people together, the work of creating brotherhood and sisterhood from the very beginning. That is our work as people of faith. In early America, we saw the work toward integration in a racial form, the struggle to try and find a way to bring together black and white. And I want to share with you a little piece of Methodist tradition. I want to show you a picture here. This is a man by the name of Harry Hosier. Harry Hosier, along with Richard Allen, were two non-voting black representatives at the Christmas Conference. Now, the Christmas Conference was in 1784 in Baltimore. And at that Christmas conference, the United Methodist, well, not the United Methodist, but the Methodist Church in America was established. Harry Hosier was a part of that conference. Harry Hosier was also known as the first black preacher in America. He preached a sermon called The Barren Fig Tree, which was known as the first black sermon in America. And then in Delaware, he became the first black man to preach to a white congregation there in 1784. Thomas Coke, who was one of the first two bishops in the Methodist tradition, said that in his estimation, Harry Hosier was the best preacher in the world. Now, Hosier and Richard Allen were non-voting members. They weren't fully integrated at that time, but we were moving in that direction, a work that continued. And you know the story of America, this work, this blood, sweat, and tears that have been invested in the cause of bringing people together for so long, a work that still continues. We can still continue to move toward integration of peoples of all forms. Which brings me to the movie I want to talk about today. We're in a little bit of a series called Movies That Move You. You know a movie that moves me? A movie that was lifted up to us by Chris Waters from our congregation, a movie called Remember the Titans. If you haven't seen Remember the Titans, you need to go see it. It's a wonderful movie. For me, it's easily on my top 10 movies of all time list. Now this movie is set, based on a true story, set in 1971 in Alexandria, Virginia, as a black high school and a white high school are integrated into one school together, T.C. Williams High School. And as those schools are put together, their football team is put together. And the people in charge chose a black coach by the name of Herman Boone to be the head coach of that football team. The very successful white coach was to serve under him as an assistant. Now you can imagine how easy this process was going to be, how simply this was going to unfold, right? Well, that football team in the summer of 1971 went away to football camp, and at that camp they fought. and they argued. But under the guidance of some wise coaches, they found their way to come together. They found their way to bridge the divide, to tear down the walls that separated. They found their way to be friends. They found their way to learn how to be a team. Now, that didn't happen for everybody, and it didn't happen easily. But they found a way to do it. But then when they went back home at the end of that summer to their friends and their families and their schools, the other people hadn't done that work. They hadn't been a part of that struggle that they were to come together, and they weren't ready for it. So they had to fight those battles all over again. And they fought and they scratched and they clawed. They stuck together. They won a state championship in football, many of them becoming lifelong friends, including those two coaches. Now there's going to be a link here for you. I invite you, if you're watching online here, to pause, hit that link, and watch the little clip that gives you a flavor of this movie, because then if you do, I know you're going to have to go and watch it. But watch it right now. Take a peek at that. Those kids, those coaches, worked so hard to bring people together. And that struggle continues in our day and our time. That struggle continues today here in Steamboat Springs. Because there's always going to be the forces of division and hate among us. There will always be those who seek to sow distrust and discontent. The incidents we've seen in our community lately, incidents directed against Jewish people, against black people, hateful, hurtful incidents, have been painful for many in our community. Our police chief, Mark Beckett, has shared with the community his view that it goes beyond just kids getting attention and that kind of thing, that there are young people in our community being drawn toward white supremacist ideology. I don't know where that comes from, maybe parents, maybe the internet, adults. It comes from somewhere. But I want to say this. You see, there are still those who don't want Jews and Gentiles to come together. There are still those who don't want black and white to come together, don't want gay, straight to come together. We know well the lesson of history summed up in the famous phrase, all it takes for evil to triumph is for good men and women to do nothing. But we will not do nothing. We will do our part to bring about the kind of community that we want this to be. We'll do it in our personal lives. We'll do it in our school. We'll do it together as a church, as a faith community, and as a part of the broader community to bring brotherhood and sisterhood to everybody in this place. We will not do nothing, but together we will do all we can to stamp out the embers of hate that might emerge among us. I'm in this park where this incident happened on a picnic table. That picnic table is now gone, and plans are in the works to put something in its place, a symbol of beauty, a symbol of hope, of goodness, a symbol of transforming hate into love. So stay tuned for that. I'm really looking forward to what that might be. I'm a part of a group in our community called STAND, which is the acronym for Steamboat Team Against Anti-Semitism and Discrimination. A team brought together by Rabbi Colby from the Jewish community. And Rabbi Colby's done such a wonderful job of drawing people from all walks of the community together to stand against discrimination and hate in all of its forms. And when I'm a part of that community, I'm there, not just me, but I'm there on behalf of all of us. I represent our faith community as we all are invested in that work. The STAND group will have community meetings where all the community is invited. The next one's going to be on November 1st, 4:30 p.m. at the community center. I invite you to put that on your calendar, November 1st, 4:30, community center, that you might join us as we all join together to create the kind of community we want in this place. All of us aren't the same. We don't have to think the same or act the same or look the same, but we all must love. For if our work is not of love, then it is not of God. If our work is not of love, then our faith, our beliefs have no value. In the words of the Apostle Paul, Without love, we would just be a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal, not good for much of anything. But hear this, rooted in love. Rooted in love, let us be clear that hateful ideology has no place in our community, no place among us. Hate will not gain a foothold here because we will call it out, we will point it out, and we will put it out in any of its forms. We will not let hate stand, but we will stand in its way. So like Paul, who worked so hard to integrate the Gentiles in his day, like Harry Hosier, who brought the good news in early America, like those football players from T.C. Williams High School, who found a way to come together and became an example for all of their community. Let us do our work to show Steamboat Springs, or whatever community you may be in, to show people what it looks like to live in the love of brotherhood and sisterhood and to come together as one. Let us be about that work. And thanks for joining me. May grace and peace be with you.